Hi everybody, my name is Christopher Poulos. I'm a professor of communication studies at the University of North Carolina, Greensboro. This is my paper. Cool. I always wanted to be cool. As a kid, I wanted to be a cowboy or a pirate or a spy or an athlete or a comic book superhero or a space pirate cowboy. Not a guy who rides horses or captains ships or sneaks around or defeats bad guys or plays sports or travels in space. Not really, but that hero I saw everywhere I turned, on big screens and small ones. The one who stared coolly at the face of evil or danger or pain or competition, or any obstacle really, and didn't flinch. Instead, I think I was born anxious. I came into this world shaking in my boots before I even wore boots. It's true, I wanted to be steely-eyed, but I was instead a bit twitchy. I have struggled off and on with pervasive anxiety for as long as I can remember. I can feel it throughout my body, but most often it lives in the pit of my stomach. It has manifested in many ways, as a free-floating nervousness, as shaky hands, as a gnawing in my stomach, as a crackling voice, as just plain squeamishness, as paralyzing fear, as anger. It has plagued me in ways that I am only now coming to grips with. Yes, I was an anxious little kid, and I have silently carried anxiety throughout my life. I've always had a good cover, though, or at least tried to. When I was young, I was the quiet one. I know, hard to believe. But I figured if I faded into the woodwork, nobody would notice my weakness. I was wrong, of course, but it worked for a little while. You see, I grew up in a time when the pressure was strong. Boys were to be men, which meant that you never let them see you sweat, never showed a weakness, never cried, never broke down, never seemed afraid. So I was silent. Until that stopped working. Then I turned it inward. The anxiety stayed in my gut while I performed a different face for the outside world. Still not cool, not steely-eyed, not confident, just adequate. I was a pretender. Deep inside me, the existentialists, well, they called it angst or dread or even despair, or in Sartre's starkest terms, nausea. Camus wrote of the question of suicide as a possible solution, and I contemplated that possibility as a way out. But he also wrote of Sisyphus and his rock as a metaphor for our existential predicament. Sisyphus, as you'll remember, was condemned by the gods to ceaselessly roll a rock up a hill, and only to have it roll back down. Push, roll, walk, repeat. My rock is anxiety. But even Sisyphus had his moments of freedom. Walking back down to retrieve his rock, he has time to reflect on his fate, and choose against dread. Yes, like Sisyphus on his walk down the hill, I've had moments of brief respite, and then my rock is back and I am straining, pushing, heaving back up my hill. For many years I worked to deny, to suppress, to banish my constant companion, my rock, this anxiety that lived deep in my gut, in my heart, and in my head. I've sought all manner of escape and treatment to rid myself of this plague. I've been addicted to work, to various substances, to success, and to external rewards. I've been diagnosed with depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, and anxiety disorder. I've been traumatized by physical violence and at least one major car accident, and all of this has had consequences. I've lived through much loss, 4 deaths in 18 months, then 7 deaths in 11 months, then 5 deaths in 3 months. I know the valley of the shadow of death pretty well. All that death can make a person anxious. That's why the psalmist vowed, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil." No fear, that's the ticket. Yeah, right. My body has, off and on, been riddled with pain. I've often wondered if my anxiety actually invites such things as pain into my life. Like some sort of a bonus. If you're going to be anxious anyway, you might as well be terrified to drive a car or walk in a crowd or stand in a line. I've worked with psychotherapists, counselors, acupuncturists, massage therapists, chiropractors, osteopaths, gurus, channelers, fakers, breatharians, 12-step programs, preachers, Reiki practitioners, Jinshin Jitsu therapists, Qigong therapists, channelers, body talk practitioners, karate senseis, doctors, allergists, and friends. I've been treated with EMDR, LENS, TENS, and many other alternative modes of treatment. I have practiced yoga, meditation, and intensive exercise. I've changed my diet, sometimes radically. I've sought out the sources, the roots, the causes of this condition, and I have sought cures, both temporary and permanent. I have self-medicated, I have been therapized, and I have taken prescribed medications. Some of this work of discovery and recovery has helped. Long ago, really, I think, as part of dealing with this existential problem, I began writing, and I've been writing ever since. And I noticed this: When I write, I am free of my constant companion, if only for a brief time. That is, when I am in the flow of writing, when it is moving along, when my fingers are grooving across the keyboard, I'm golden. My anxiety fades into the background. So I write, and write, and write some more. And along the way, I begin to wonder, can I win? Can I send anxiety packing? Will I someday be cool? Or will I always be dogged by this friend of mine? And then one day it occurs to me, maybe I should make real friends with it, help it cool its heels, reassure it, help it learn to chill. But there it is, rearing up in all its power, flexing its twitchiness. This monster is relentless, and this pandemic reality we've been living in these last 2 years has not improved it. In fact, during the initial COVID lockdown, though, I was fine. I was home. I was in my refuge, with the love of my life and our wonderful protector dogs. But as time wore on, I felt the pervasive anxiety in our world seeping in through the cracks. I realized it wasn't just me. It was everywhere. It was panxiety, pan-anxiety, pandemic anxiety, everyone's anxiety. And apparently anxiety crept deeper into my cells, and reignited that other nightmare sci-fi scenario that lives in my body, the chickenpox virus, varicella zoster, which has lain dormant inside me since I was a small child who suffered a mild case of chickenpox before there was a vaccine. Shingles, what a hideous name, my friends, is no laughing matter. The pain woke me right up, and I knew immediately what it was. I had a flare-up about 17 years ago. Ouch. And yes, I took meds, and yes, it died back down without dying completely, waiting like that creepy alien life form that it is for its next opportunity. And no, the vaccine doesn't kill it, it just keeps it at bay for a bit. And no, I didn't get one. I was thinking about to get that little shot, but then COVID had hit, and we were all shut down, and, life went on. So the creepy little bastards waited for their opportunity and pounced. Apparently, stress triggers the virus. Damn, I have never felt so unsettled in all my life. Good old ambient anxiety, cell-munching anxiety, immune system compromising anxiety. So, knowing it was waiting for another opportunity, I went searching for yet another cure, and I caught myself writing again. I wanted to write my way into and through anxiety with an eye toward transcendence, or at least escape, and this got me to reading, or actually rereading, Paul Tillich. Tillich wrote a lot about this topic. He wrote a whole book about it in which he poses a simple countermeasure to the intense anxiety that comes from the stark realization that human life is finite, that, we're all gonna die. The courage to be. The courage to be is the courage, the heart that rises up in us as we face our fate. I must embrace this courage and walk through the fear. So I muster up my courage and I write. By the way, a couple of years ago, Susan and I finally got around to watching the Netflix show Dear White People. We figured white people should have to watch the show at some point. The coolest thing is that it's a multi-layered media event. It's like one of those Russian nesting dolls I put on my mantle at Christmas, which happens to be a Santa within a Santa within a Santa within a Santa. Dear White People is a TV show about a radio show that takes the form of a letter, a collage of media genres I cannot help but love. Since I was coming off 5 deaths in 3 months, I was having a time of it. My grief was hitting me hard, and anxiety came knocking in the form of dreams about my own death. I had to do something, so I wrote a letter to death, like the letter in Dear White People, trying to put death and his pal anxiety in their proper place. Like I said, death was knocking around my life a bit too often, and I decided to address it directly to see if we could come to an understanding. So, in that spirit, I've now written an autoethnographic letter about anxiety to anxiety in the hope of coming to an understanding, or at least an accord. Dear anxiety, you are my constant companion, though I'd hardly call you a friend, more like an uninvited but unshakable sidekick. You follow me around like a nervous, untrained, unruly puppy nipping at my heels. Sometimes I think you're just always gonna be there. I've come to take you for granted almost. Oh sure, I've tried my best to banish you. I've wanted to kick you to the curb for as long as I can remember. I've worked very hard in every way I could think of to dump you. And then last spring I decided to try a new approach. I tried to make friends with you by writing a collaborative autoethnography with you. We presented it at ICQI 2021, remember? Well, I get it if you don't. You're even twitchier than me. Obviously, you weren't paying attention. Let's face it, you're kind of a pain in the ass. Actually, I've begun to think you're a bit of an asshole. You're like that kid in 6th grade, Rusty, the one who never relented, the class bully, the one who just couldn't seem to stop himself. A real classhole. He punched people just for fun. I'm sure he's in prison now or worse. Someone likely knocked him off. Nobody liked him after all. How could they? He was cruel for no discernible reason. Sure, he was probably wounded, likely passing on something he'd learned in his home. Like you, he had issues, but that's no excuse. Somebody needs to stop the cycle of violence. Apparently that someone is me. So here's the deal. I'm not going to hang out with you anymore, at all. We're done. I've been practicing my steely-eyed stare, and I'm getting good at it. I shot it at a guy in Costco the other day. He was wearing his mask under his chin, and I gave him the look. We made eye contact. He pulled his mask up nervously. I've also practiced my self-defense moves and my breathing as I'm going to stare you down. I'm going to be cool whether you like it or not. I've got the black t-shirt and the tattered jeans. I've got some kick-ass boots. I'm ready. Like the hero of Frank Herbert's Dune, I will recite the litany against fear. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me, and when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain. Best of all, I have my little ultra-quick MacBook Pro with its brand new M1 chip ready to hum along as fast as my fingers will fly. You think I need to kick your ass with physical force? Ha! I've got soul force. I've got my better, stronger, faster, cleaner, more appropriate, more evocative, more moving, more compelling, friendlier friend, autoethnography. In other words, anxiety, you've been replaced. From now on, every time you show up, I'm just going to write you away. So, take a powder. Ciao, baby. Hasta la vista. Goodbye. Get along. Go. You're not welcome here. Auf Wiedersehen. See ya. Wouldn't want to be ya. Seriously, Christopher. Where does this leave us? We are left with a call to stay cool, to hang with the cool kids, to read and write and study autoethnography. Yeah, I know, you thought we were all nerds. Well, we are, but nerds are the new cool. Like I said, we are left with a call to write our way through the valleys and the ditches, up the hills and across the ridges of life. A call to make our way through our pain, our fear, our anxiety, our depression, our anger, our grief, our joy, our cynicism, our laughter, our loves and our broken loves, our relationships of all kinds, our trials and tribulations, our challenges and our triumphs, by writing autoethnography. It's a call to make ourselves better, to make our writing better, to make our world better. It's a call to follow our hearts, and as Ruth Behar would have it, break them, if only a little, and then to get back up again and write some more. In closing, I have a simple argument for your consideration. There is nothing cooler than autoethnography, and no better cure for anxiety than writing your way through it. So there is good news, y'all. You're now part of the cool kids. What could possibly be the bad news? Well, I'm here to say that writing autoethnography is hard. But that's not really bad news, is it? Everything worthwhile requires effort and grit and perseverance and determination. Life itself means making up our way up the mountains and through the valleys. Hell, you might even be walking through the valley of the shadow of shadows. But there's this. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Stay cool, everyone, and keep writing.